Welcome to a journey through the greatest story ever told. We are excited to invite you into our complete Bible stories and lesson series. Thoughtfully selected, carefully arranged, and beautifully brought together in chronological order according to the eras of the Bible, making it easier for you to follow the Bible as history unfolds. This is more than just storytelling. It's a journey of faith, growth, and deeper understanding. Whether you are watching for the first time or returning to revisit these powerful moments, we pray that as you watch each series, your heart is encouraged, your faith is strengthened, and your life is blessed. Sit back, reflect, and let the Word come alive. Welcome to the journey.
In the vast expanse of history, there are moments that define humanity, echoes of which resonate through the ages. This is the story of one such moment, a tale of faith in a world consumed by shadows, of a single family standing against the tide of corruption. It is the beginning of an epic undertaking, born from a divine command. The earth had grown old not in years but in spirit. A shadow had fallen over the hearts of mankind and wickedness had taken root, spreading like a relentless weed. The world was a canvas of chaos painted with strokes of violence, greed, and despair. Brotherhood was forgotten and compassion was a currency no longer valued. In bustling cities and quiet villages alike, the air was thick with the stench of moral decay. Humanity had lost its way, wandering in a wilderness of its own making, deaf to the whispers of virtue that had once guided it. The world was teetering on the brink, ripe for a cleansing, a reset ordained by a power far greater than itself. Amidst this sprawling decay, there was a man who walked a different path. His name was Noah. He was not a king, nor a warrior, but a man of the earth, living a life of quiet integrity with his wife and their 3 sons. His hands were calloused from work, but his spirit was pure. While others chased fleeting pleasures and built empires on foundations of deceit, Noah built his life on a foundation of faith and righteousness. He was a beacon of light in a world drowning in darkness, a stark and lonely contrast to the clamor of corruption that surrounded his peaceful existence. His devotion was an unspoken testament to a higher calling, a life lived in harmony with the Creator. One day, that harmony was pierced by a voice that was not of this world. It was a communication not of words, but of profound, soul-shaking understanding. A divine light, brilliant and pure, enveloped Noah, separating him from the mundane world and placing him in the presence of the Almighty. In this sacred moment, God spoke to him, revealing the coming judgment, a great flood to wash away the world's wickedness. But with this dire prophecy came a command, a blueprint for survival. Noah was instructed to build a colossal vessel, an ark of gopher wood. The instructions were precise: its length, its width, its height, the number of its decks, and the single window near its roof. This ark would be a sanctuary, a floating refuge for his family and for pairs of every living creature on earth. The vision faded, but its weight remained, settling upon Noah's shoulders not as a burden but as a sacred duty. The monumental task began. With his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth by his side, Noah ventured into the ancient forests. The resounding crash of colossal trees falling to the earth was the first note in a symphony of construction. They worked from dawn until dusk, their muscles straining as they hewed the massive logs and began to lay the immense foundation of the ark upon the dry, sun-baked land. As the skeleton of the great vessel began to take shape, far from any sea, crowds of onlookers gathered. They pointed and jeered, their laughter echoing across the plains. They saw not a vessel of salvation, but the folly of an old man. Their mockery was a constant biting wind. But Noah's resolve, forged in faith, did not waver. The first timbers were laid, a testament to a promise made between God and man, setting the stage for the trials and the deluge yet to come. The work was done. As the last timbers were laid, a great and orderly procession began. From the forests and the fields, from the skies and the soil they came. Creatures of every kind, guided by an unseen hand, arrived 2 by 2. Majestic elephants marched with ponderous grace, their great forms moving steadily up the ramp. Lions, their wild nature calmed, walked alongside gentle lambs. Flocks of birds, a kaleidoscope of color and sound, wheeled overhead before settling within the vast vessel. Even the smallest of insects found their way, a living, crawling tapestry ascending into the ark's embrace. Noah, his face a mixture of awe and solemn duty, stood with his family, directing the flow of life into the safety of their wooden sanctuary. Each pair passed, a silent promise of a world to come disappearing into the cavernous hold of the ark. As the final creature, a lone dove, fluttered aboard, a profound and sudden change fell over the land. The sky, once a brilliant blue, darkened to an ominous, bruised purple. The light faded, casting long, eerie shadows across the ground where the scoffers and mockers had gathered. Their laughter died in their throats, replaced by a stunned, fearful silence. With a deep groaning sound that was not of human making, the great door of the ark began to move. It swung slowly, inexorably shut, a massive wooden barrier sealing the vessel with supernatural finality. Just as the door settled into its frame, locking Noah and his precious cargo within, the first drop of rain fell. It was a single, heavy drop, a harbinger of the cataclysm to come. What began as a single drop quickly became a trickle, then a shower, then a torrential downpour of impossible force. The heavens opened and rain fell not in sheets, but in solid curtains of water that battered the earth. Simultaneously, the ground itself seemed to rupture. From deep within the planet, the fountains of the great deep burst forth, spewing colossal geysers into the air. The waters rose with terrifying speed. Sweeping shots show the flood engulfing everything in its path. Humble homes were swept away like driftwood. Grand cities were swallowed by the churning tide, and soon, even the tallest mountains disappeared beneath the waves. The world that had been was erased, submerged under a violent global ocean. Tossed upon the endless, raging sea, the ark was a solitary vessel of life in a world of death. Inside, the chaos of the storm was a constant roar, a reminder of the destruction unfolding outside. Yet within its wooden walls, a different scene played out. Noah and his family moved with quiet faith and unwavering perseverance. They tended to the animals, their days filled with the simple, rhythmic tasks of feeding and caring for the creatures entrusted to them. Amidst the fury of the storm and the rocking of the great ship, they gathered to pray, their voices a small but steady testament to their trust in the promise of deliverance. The ark drifted, a lonely speck on the face of the waters, carrying the hope of a new beginning through the darkest of nights. After a year of tempest and uncertainty, the great storm finally ceased. The relentless rain stopped, the geysers of the deep fell silent, and the ark, a solitary vessel of hope, floated upon a vast, tranquil ocean under a slowly clearing sky. For months, Noah and his family lived in this quiet aftermath, drifting on the placid waters that covered the world. Then one day, a new sight broke the horizon. The peaks of the highest mountains, like ancient sentinels, began to emerge from the receding sea. The long, dark chapter was drawing to a close, and the promise of land stirred the air with anticipation. A new world was waiting to be reborn from the depths. In this time of waiting, Noah sought a sign, a confirmation that the earth was ready to welcome life again. He opened the ark's single window and sent forth a dove, a delicate messenger tasked with surveying the transformed world. After its first journey, it returned, having found no place to rest. 7 days later, he sent it out once more. This time, the dove returned at evening, and in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. It was a simple, tender green leaf, yet it was the most profound symbol of hope they had ever seen. It was the first sign of new life, undeniable proof that the waters were abating and the earth was healing. A wave of immense relief and joy washed over the family, their hearts filled with gratitude for this token of peace and new beginnings. Following this hopeful sign, the waters continued to recede, and the ark, guided by an unseen hand, drifted gently until it came to rest. With a soft final bump, the vessel settled upon the slopes of a mountain, its long and arduous journey finally over. The rhythmic rocking that had been their constant companion for so long had ceased. Silence, profound and absolute, filled the ark. The family and the animals within sensed the change. A sense of stillness and finality replaced the motion of the waves. They had reached their destination. The world outside, once a place of chaos and destruction, was now their promised home. With reverence and a sense of profound wonder, Noah approached the great door of the ark. As it swung open, brilliant, unfiltered sunlight flooded the cavernous interior, chasing away the last shadows of their long confinement. The air that rushed in was crisp, clean, and alive with the scent of damp earth and fresh growth. Noah, his wife, their sons, and their wives led the procession, stepping out onto a world washed clean, vibrant, and untouched. Behind them, the pairs of animals followed, their calls and cries echoing in the pristine silence as they took their first steps onto the new earth. It was a moment of pure awe and overwhelming gratitude, a sacred dawn for all of creation. Standing on the renewed earth, Noah's first act was one of thanksgiving. He gathered stones and built an altar, a place to honor the God who had delivered them through the flood. As he offered his heartfelt praise, a breathtaking spectacle unfolded in the heavens. A magnificent, vibrant rainbow stretched across the sky, its brilliant colors painting an arc of light from one end of the horizon to the other. It was a divine signature, a symbol of God's covenant with humanity and every living creature. It was a promise, sealed in light and color, that never again would the waters of a flood cover the earth to destroy all life. This celestial bow was a sign of mercy, an everlasting reminder of God's faithfulness. Thus began the new life of Noah's family, a fresh start for all of humanity. The story of their journey became a timeless testament to the power of faith and the virtue of obedience. It teaches us that even in the face of overwhelming doubt and ridicule, holding fast to what is right can lead to salvation. It shows that obedience to a higher purpose, even when the path is difficult and the destination unseen, is a cornerstone of a righteous life. And most importantly, Noah's story is an enduring symbol of hope, a powerful reminder that after every storm, there is the promise of a second chance, a new beginning, and the unwavering grace of a promise kept.
He was a man marked by integrity, honored on earth and watched in heaven. A life overflowing with blessing, a name respected in every gate. But in a single moment, the world he knew was torn apart. His wealth vanished, his children gone, his body struck with agony. Friends turned to accusers, his wife turned to despair.
Are you still trying to maintain your integrity? Curse God and die.
And the heavens?
For skin, a man will give all he has for his own life.
Yet in the dust and ashes, when all strength failed, one truth remained.
I was born with nothing, and when I die, I will take nothing with me. God has given and God has taken away. May his name be praised.
Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. The storm raged, the questions multiplied, and the darkness pressed in. But from the whirlwind, God answered.
Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge?
Not with explanations, but with revelation. The one who laid the foundations of the earth stepped into the suffering of one man. And when the trial had passed, the dawn broke brighter than the night. His wounds became wisdom, his loss became testimony, his pain became a door to greater glory. This is the story of faith that fire could not consume, a heart the storm could not break, a man who found God in the ashes. This is the story of Job, a man of unbroken faith.
In the ancient land of Uz, there lived a man named Job, a figure of unparalleled righteousness and prosperity. His days were marked by immense wealth, with vast herds of livestock dotting the landscape and a large, loving family that filled his home with joy. Job was not just a man of earthly riches, he was a man of deep and unwavering faith. Each morning, he would rise to offer sacrifices and prayers, dedicating his life and his family to God, living in a state of constant, humble worship.
God is gracious.
Have you ever seen God, Papa?
Experience his glory in everything, as he reveals himself in various ways.
In a heavenly council, God himself spoke of Job's integrity, holding him up as a perfect and upright man who feared God and shunned evil. However, a challenger emerged from the assembly, Satan,
Job, my servant, is righteous.
arguing that his faith was merely a transaction, a byproduct of the blessings and protection God had showered upon him.
Does Job fears God for nothing? Strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face.
Confident in his servant's faithfulness, God granted Satan permission to put Job to the test. He could take away everything Job possessed, his wealth, his servants, and even his children, but he was forbidden from laying a hand on Job's own body. The trial began with devastating speed. A messenger, breathless and panicked, rushed to Job with terrible news. Sabaean raiders had stolen his oxen and donkeys, slaughtering the servants who tended them. Before the shock could even settle, another messenger arrived. He spoke of a terrifying fire that had fallen from the sky, consuming Job's sheep and the shepherds watching over them. The calamities continued to mount without pause. A third messenger appeared, his face a mask of fear, reporting that Chaldean raiders had carried off all the camels and killed their keepers. In a matter of moments, the foundations of Job's immense fortune had crumbled into dust, his life's work obliterated by forces beyond his control. Just as Job began to process the staggering loss of his wealth, the final, most soul-crushing blow was delivered. A fourth and final messenger, the lone survivor of the catastrophe, stumbled before him. He recounted a scene of celebration turned to tragedy. A mighty wind had swept in from the desert and struck the house where Job's children were feasting, causing it to collapse upon them. All were lost. In one horrific instant, the laughter of his sons and daughters was silenced forever, leaving Job utterly alone and bereft of the family he cherished more than any earthly possession. In the face of this unimaginable suffering, a lesser man would have collapsed into despair or raged against the heavens. But Job's response was one of profound, heart-wrenching piety. Overwhelmed by grief, he tore his robe and shaved his head, ancient signs of deep mourning. Yet he did not curse his fate. Instead, he fell to the ground, not in defeat, but in an act of worship. With a voice choked by sorrow but steady in its conviction, he declared,
I was born with nothing, and when I die, I will take nothing with me. God has given and God has taken away. May his name be praised.
Even when stripped of everything he held dear, Job's faith did not waver. His worship remained his anchor in a storm of incomprehensible loss. The story of Job's unwavering faith continues, a tale that has echoed through millennia, questioning the very nature of suffering and divine justice. We've journeyed through his first devastating trial, where he lost his wealth, his children, and everything he held dear, yet refused to curse God. But his ordeal was far from over. The adversary, not yet satisfied, would return to test the limits of human endurance, pushing Job to the brink of despair. What happens when loss is no longer external but becomes etched into one's very flesh? This is the story of Job's second trial, a crucible of physical agony that would challenge his soul in ways unimaginable. Once again, the heavenly court convened, and among the celestial beings, Satan presented himself before the Lord. God, looking upon the steadfastness of his servant, declared to the adversary,
Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil, and he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason.
But Satan, ever the skeptic, countered with a chilling proposition.
Skin for skin. A man will give all he has for his own life, but stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face.
The challenge was laid down. God, confident in Job's faithfulness, permitted the test, but with one crucial command.
Very well. Then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life.
Satan departed and unleashed a horrific affliction upon Job. He struck him with painful, agonizing sores that covered his body from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. The once great man was reduced to a pitiable state, sitting among the ashes, scraping his raw, weeping skin with a shard of broken pottery in a desperate attempt to find a moment's relief. His physical suffering was immense, a constant, tormenting fire that consumed his every waking moment. The man who once sat in the city gate as a respected elder now sat in a pile of dust, an outcast in his own land, his body a landscape of pure misery. In the midst of this torment, his wife, who had shared in all their previous losses, finally reached her breaking point. Seeing her husband in such a wretched state, her heart shattered.
Are you still trying to maintain your integrity? Curse God and die.
Her words were a bitter plea for an end to their shared nightmare. But Job, even in his agony, rebuked her gently.
You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble.
In this profound statement, Job reaffirmed his unwavering trust, refusing to sin with his lips even when his own wife urged him to abandon his faith. News of Job's compounded tragedy traveled far, reaching his three friends: Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. Bound by long-standing friendship, they made an appointment to go and comfort him. As they approached from a distance, they saw a figure sitting in the ashes but could not recognize him. The man before them was so disfigured by his suffering, so utterly broken that he was a stranger. When the horrifying realization dawned that this was their friend Job, they wept aloud, tore their robes, and sprinkled dust on their heads in a display of profound grief. Overwhelmed by the sheer depth of his anguish, they simply sat on the ground with him. For 7 days and 7 nights, not a single word was spoken, for they saw that his suffering was too great for empty platitudes or simple condolences. Their shared silence was a testament to a pain that defied all expression. Thus the stage was set for a new chapter in Job's ordeal. His physical suffering was now compounded by isolation and the silent, heavy presence of his friends. The silence would soon be broken, not by words of comfort, but by a torrent of laments, accusations, and profound philosophical debates that would form the heart of his story. Job's journey through the darkest valley of human suffering was only just beginning, a testament to the enduring power of faith in the face of inexplicable pain, a story that continues to challenge and inspire us to this day. After 7 long days of sitting in shared silent grief, the dam of Job's composure finally breaks. He doesn't curse God as Satan had predicted, but he unleashes a torrent of anguish, cursing the very day he was born. In a poetic and heart-wrenching lament, he questions the purpose of his existence, asking why light was given to one in misery and life to the bitter of soul. His words paint a vivid picture of a man drowning in despair, not in anger at God, but in the sheer weight of his suffering. He longs for the oblivion of death, a place where the wicked cease from troubling and the weary are at rest. This initial cry is not one of rebellion, but of utter desolation, a plea for an answer to the question that haunts every suffering soul: why? This raw expression of pain marks the end of his friend's compassionate silence. Eliphaz the Temanite is the first to speak, and his words, though couched in seeming wisdom, land like stones on Job's wounded spirit. He begins gently, almost hesitantly, but quickly moves to his central argument.
God is just, and suffering is a direct consequence of sin.
He posits that the righteous do not perish and the innocent are not destroyed. From his perspective, Job's immense suffering must be proof of some equally immense, albeit hidden, transgression. He recounts a mystical vision, a spirit that whispered in the night, reinforcing the idea of human impurity before a holy God. Eliphaz's counsel is simple and to him self-evident.
Appeal to God, repent of your secret sins, and your fortunes will be restored.
For Job, this counsel is not a comfort but a profound betrayal. He looks at the men who came to mourn with him and sees not supporters but accusers. His response is filled with anguish and a burning sense of injustice.
My suffering is overwhelming, and instead of comforting me, your words only deepen my pain.
Job passionately defends his integrity, insisting that his life has been blameless. The pain of his physical ailments is now compounded by the sharp sting of wrongful accusation and the deep isolation of being condemned by his closest companions. The assault on Job's character only intensifies as the other friends join the fray. Bildad the Shuhite speaks next, echoing Eliphaz's rigid theology but with a harsher, more accusatory edge. He coldly suggests that if Job's children died, it must have been because they sinned, and that God had rightly cast them away. He compares Job's arguments to a long-winded speech, and urges him to accept the traditional wisdom that God does not pervert justice. Then Zophar the Naamathite enters, delivering the most brutal critique yet. He mocks Job's claims of innocence, sneering that God is actually punishing him far less than his iniquity truly deserves. The circle of friends has now fully transformed into a tribunal, each one building a case against Job based on their unwavering belief in a simple, transactional universe. The scene closes on a powerful and tragic tableau. Job, a man broken in body and spirit, sits surrounded by his accusers, his face turned toward the heavens. He is utterly alone, feeling abandoned by the God he has faithfully served and betrayed by the friends he trusted. Yet amidst this crushing isolation, a flicker of defiance remains. He refuses to lie, To confess to sins he is not committed just to satisfy his friend's simplistic theology or to bargain for relief. This unwavering commitment to his own truth, even when it leaves him completely isolated, sets the stage for the next, most dramatic phase of his journey. His audacious and unprecedented demand to confront God directly and plead his case before the judge of all the earth. For 3 long cycles of debate, Job and his friends have gone around in circles, their words spinning into a vortex of grief, accusation, and self-defense. But as their arguments trail off into an exhausted silence, a new voice cuts through the tension. A young man named Elihu, who had been listening quietly this whole time, can no longer contain his frustration. He had held his tongue out of respect for his elders, but their failure to provide a true answer has ignited a righteous anger within him. He is angry at Job for justifying himself rather than God. And he is equally furious with the 3 friends for condemning Job without actually refuting him, failing to truly vindicate God's honor. He declares that,
"I am young in years, and you are old. That is why I was fearful, not daring to tell you what I know. I thought age should speak. Advanced years should teach wisdom. But it is the spirit in a man, the breath of the Almighty, that gives him understanding."
he completely dismisses that all suffering is a direct punishment for past sin. This, he argues, is a shallow understanding of God's ways. Instead, Elihu proposes a revolutionary idea. Suffering can be a form of divine discipline, a preventative measure from a loving God. It is not always about retribution for something you've already done. Sometimes it's a merciful warning intended to save you from future sin or from the destructive path of pride. He suggests that God uses hardship to get our attention, to pull us back from the brink when we can no longer hear his voice through other means. In Elihu's view, pain has a profound purpose. It is one of God's many languages, a tool used to communicate with humanity when other methods fail. "For God speaks in one way and in 2, though man does not perceive it," he proclaims. He describes how God can come to a person in a dream or a vision of the night, or through the chastening of pain on their bed, all to turn a man from his deed and to hide pride from a man. This is a God who is actively involved, using trials not to crush but to correct and redeem. It is a far more compassionate and complex portrait of the divine than the one painted by Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, who saw God merely as a cosmic judge settling old scores. While the friends ultimately failed to defend God's justice, Elihu becomes God's passionate champion. He shifts the entire focus of the conversation away from Job's personal suffering and his demands for a hearing. Instead, Elihu directs everyone's attention upward, toward the absolute majesty, unwavering justice, and perfect character of God. He rebukes Job not for his pain, but for his presumption in questioning the Almighty. Elihu argues that God is far too great to be unjust and that his ways are beyond human comprehension. His speech is not an attack on Job, but a powerful defense of God's sovereignty and righteousness, reminding everyone present of the infinite gap between the Creator and the created. As Elihu's speech swells to its climax, his words begin to mirror the world around them. He gestures toward the sky, describing God's magnificent power over the elements, the formation of the clouds, the roll of the thunder, and the flash of the lightning. He speaks of the storm as a manifestation of God's power, an instrument of either judgment or blessing. His powerful oration on the God of the storm acts as a dramatic prelude. As he speaks, the air grows heavy and the sky begins to darken. A wind picks up, swirling dust around the weary men. Elihu's speech is not just the end of the human debate, it is the overture for the divine appearance, setting the stage for God himself to finally answer from the heart of the whirlwind.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for more inspiring stories. Shall we begin the story?
In the desolate expanse where Job had endured so much, the air itself began to change. The sky, once a pitiless blue, gathered a deep and unsettling darkness. A great whirlwind began to form, not a storm born of natural forces, but a terrifying manifestation of divine power. Job and his friends, their heated debate silenced, could only gaze upward in awe and terror. The swirling vortex was a physical presence, a conduit between the heavens and the earth, and from its heart, a voice was about to speak. A booming voice imbued with the authority of the cosmos thundered from the heart of the storm, addressing Job directly.
Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge?
The voice was not angry. but it held an unchallengeable power that shook the very ground.
Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me.
The long-awaited divine response had finally arrived, but it was not the explanation Job had demanded. It was a challenge. God did not justify his actions or explain the reason for Job's suffering. Instead, he unleashed a torrent of questions designed to reveal the vast gulf between divine wisdom and human understanding.
Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?
The voice asked.
Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Who stretched the measuring line across it? On what were its bases set?
God's questions painted a picture of a universe intricately and masterfully designed. The divine interrogation continued, highlighting God's effortless control over all of creation.
Have you commanded the morning since your days began?
God asked, illustrating his dominion over the cycle.
Have you caused the dawn to know its place? Do you send the lightning bolts on their way? Do they report to you? Here we are.
He then turned to the animal kingdom, a world operating entirely outside human influence. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the young lions? The questions revealed a world teeming with life, from the majestic lion to the soaring eagle, all sustained and governed by God's decree alone, functioning according to a purpose far beyond human comprehension. As a final testament to his creative power, God described two magnificent and untamable creatures, Behemoth and Leviathan. These were not ordinary animals, but awe-inspiring beasts, pinnacles of creation whose might no human could ever hope to challenge or control. Behemoth, with bones like bronze and limbs like iron, and the fearsome Leviathan, whose scales were like a shield and whose breath could kindle coals, served as living symbols of the awesome and untamable aspect of God's power, a power that is both beautiful and terrifying. Faced with this overwhelming display of divine majesty, Job was profoundly humbled. The questions were not meant to be answered, but to reframe his perspective. All his arguments, his righteous demands for justice dissolved in the face of a reality so much larger and more complex than he had ever imagined. He finally understood his place. Covering his mouth in a gesture of submission, he answered the Almighty.
Surely I spoke of things I did not understand.
He confessed, his voice no longer defiant but filled with reverent awe.
My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes.
Job's true healing began not with an explanation, but with a transformative encounter with the infinite. Welcome back to our series exploring the profound narratives of the Bible. In our previous installment, we witnessed Job's humbling encounter with God in the midst of a whirlwind, a dialogue that reshaped his understanding of divine wisdom and power. Today we arrive at the final chapter of his story, a powerful testament to faith, forgiveness, and divine restoration. As the mighty storm recedes and a quiet calm settles over the land, the voice of God speaks once more. This time, however, it is not directed at Job, but at his friend Eliphaz. With righteous authority, God rebukes him and his two companions, declaring,
Eliphaz, I am displeased with you and your two friends, for you did not speak rightly of me, as my servant Job did.
The friends who had presumed to speak for God now stand corrected by God himself. Their well-intentioned but flawed counsel is laid bare, and they are shown the gravity of misrepresenting the divine nature. In a stunning turn of events, God instructs the three friends on the path to their forgiveness. They must take 7 bulls and 7 rams, go to Job, and offer a burnt offering for themselves. But their atonement is incomplete without one crucial act. Job must pray for them. God proclaims, My servant Job shall pray for you, for I will accept his prayer. We then see the humbled friends, their faces etched with remorse, bringing their sacrifices to the very man they had condemned. Job, in an act of profound grace and forgiveness, raises his hands and intercedes for them, demonstrating a spirit fully restored and aligned with God's mercy. Immediately following Job's prayer for his friends, the tide of his life turns dramatically. The Lord blesses the latter part of Job's life more than the first. A breathtaking montage unfolds, showing his fortunes being restored twofold. The once barren pastures now teem with life, filled with 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. A magnificent new home rises from the earth, and all his relatives and former acquaintances return, not with accusations, but with comfort, gifts of silver, and rings of gold, celebrating his renewed prosperity. Beyond material wealth, God restores the deep personal loss Job had endured. He is blessed with a new family, 7 sons and 3 daughters. The narrative pauses to name his daughters, Jemima, Keziah, and Karen Happuch, noting that nowhere in all the land were there found women as beautiful as they. In a progressive act for the time, Job gives them an inheritance along with their brothers, a sign of his deep love and God's abundant favor. Our final scene settles on a peaceful, sun-drenched landscape. A much older, white-haired Job sits serenely, his face filled with contentment surrounded by generations of his descendants. The story concludes that Job lived for another 140 years, long enough to see his children, his children's children, even to the 4th generation. He died, the scripture says, old and full of days. His life a complete and powerful circle of suffering, faith, and ultimate restoration. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the book of Job. We hope this story has offered you a deeper perspective on faith in the face of suffering. Please subscribe for more explorations into the timeless stories that have shaped our world.
Long before kings ruled in Israel, the land was again under the shadow of oppression. This time, it was the Philistines, fierce enemies who had dominated God's people for 40 years. Their armies controlled the roads, their soldiers raided villages, and the cries of the Israelites rose up to heaven. But God had not forgotten his people. In a quiet town called Zorah, he chose to begin deliverance in the most unusual way, not through armies or swords, but through the miraculous birth of a single child. One day, the angel of the Lord appeared to a barren woman.
You will conceive and give birth to a son. No razor shall touch his head, for the boy is to be a Nazirite, set apart to God from birth. He will begin the deliverance of Israel from the hand of the Philistines.
This child was Samson. From his youth, the Spirit of the Lord stirred within him, granting supernatural strength, unlike anything the world had seen. With his bare hands, he tore a roaring lion apart. With the jawbone of a donkey, he struck down 1,000 men. Samson became the terror of the Philistines. Their armies, their gates, their warriors, none could contain him. But Samson's greatest battles were not fought on the battlefield. They were fought within his own heart. Though set apart for God, Samson often followed his own desires. He fell in love with Philistine women, ignoring God's command to remain holy. And through his weakness, the enemy found a way in. Her name was Delilah.
Tell me the secret of your great strength, and how you can be tied up and subdued.
Time and time again she pressed him until his soul was vexed to death. At last, Samson revealed what should have never been spoken.
My hair has never been cut, because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man.
That night, as he slept on Delilah's lap, his locks were cut. The Spirit of the Lord departed from him, and Samson's strength was gone. The Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and bound him in chains. The mighty judge of Israel became a blind prisoner grinding grain in the enemy's prison. Yet even in chains, God was not finished with Samson. Slowly, his hair began to grow again, a sign that his covenant with God was not forgotten. One day, the Philistines gathered in the temple of their god Dagon, rejoicing over Samson's downfall. They brought him out to entertain them, mocking the man who had once struck terror into their hearts. But Samson prayed,
Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me, with one blow, get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes.
Led between the great pillars of the temple, Samson reached out and placed his hands against them. With every ounce of his remaining strength, he pushed. The temple shook, the pillars gave way, and the building collapsed upon the rulers and thousands of Philistines. In his death, Samson struck down more enemies than he had in his entire life. Samson's story is one of power and weakness, triumph and failure, judgment and redemption. He reminds us that even when we fall, God can use us again when we turn back to Him. Our strength does not come from our own might, but from the Spirit of the Lord. And just as God used a flawed man like Samson to deliver His people, He can use ordinary, broken vessels today to accomplish His purposes. The question remains,
will you, like Samson in his last breath, call on the Lord and come back to Him, walking from that moment forward in holiness? Hear His call. Restoration is possible. Your hair can grow again. The God who answered then still answers now.
The night was thick with silence, broken only by the whisper of wind over the hills of Israel. Once fertile fields lay trampled by invaders, devoured and burned, leaving fear and ashes. For 7 years, the Midianites ruled the land like a plague of locusts, stealing every harvest and crushing every spirit. Israel hid in caves, threshing wheat in secret, praying to the God they had forgotten, the same God who once split seas and shattered empires. In that darkness, heaven's light descended not to a warrior or a king, but to a man hiding from his enemies, a man whose trembling hands spoke more of hunger than courage. His name was Gideon, son of Joash. Beneath an oak in Ophrah, he threshed wheat in a winepress, hiding from Midian. Then the angel of the Lord appeared and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon, startled, "If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? Where are His wonders our fathers told us about? Has He not abandoned us?" The angel replied, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" Gideon said, "But my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." Then came the words that changed his life forever. "I will be with you, and you will strike down the Midianites as one man." That night God gave Gideon his first test. "Tear down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Build an altar to the Lord your God and offer a bull as a burnt offering." Though fear gripped him, Gideon obeyed. Under the cover of night, he tore down the altar and burned the idol. When morning came, the town saw what he had done and demanded his death. But Joash answered, "If Baal is a god, let him defend himself." From that day Gideon was called Jerubbaal, let Baal contend. Soon after, the valley of Jezreel filled with the armies of Midian, Amalek, and the people of the east, countless as locusts, their camels like sand on the shore. Fear spread through Israel. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and courage rose within him. He blew a trumpet, summoning warriors from Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. 32,000 men gathered to fight. But the Lord said, "You have too many. If I deliver Midian into their hands, Israel will boast that their strength saved them." So Gideon said, "Whoever is afraid, let him return home." 22,000 left, 10,000 remained. Still God said, "There are too many." Down at the water he tested them. Those who knelt to drink were set aside. Those who cupped water in their hands, watchful and ready, were chosen. Only 300 remained, 300 against an army beyond number. That night God said, "If you are afraid, go down to the camp and listen." Gideon crept through the shadows to the edge of the enemy camp and heard a man telling his dream. "I saw a loaf of barley bread tumble into the camp of Midian. It struck a tent and it fell." His companion replied, "This is none other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash. God has given Midian into his hand." Gideon bowed in worship, faith burning like fire in his chest. He returned to his camp and cried, "Arise, for the Lord has delivered the camp of Midian into our hands." He divided his men into 3 companies, each with a trumpet and a torch hidden inside a clay jar. No swords, no shields, only faith. At the beginning of the middle watch, when guards had just changed, Gideon's men surrounded the camp. At his signal, they blew their trumpets, smashed their jars, and raised their torches high. Fire and sound split the night, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. Terror seized the camp, confusion spread, and the warriors turned their swords against one another. The Lord himself fought for Israel. The enemy fled toward the Jordan, and Gideon's men pursued them, capturing their kings and ending the tyranny of Midian. When the battle was over, the people said, "Rule over us, you and your sons, for you have delivered us." But Gideon replied, "I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. The Lord will rule over Israel." The land had peace for 40 years, and Gideon's name became a song among the tribes, yet even heroes stumble. From the gold of war, Gideon made an ephod, meaning to honor God, but the people turned it into an idol, and it became a snare to him and his house. When Gideon died, Israel once more forgot the Lord and turned again to Baal. Yet his story remained a testimony that God does not choose the mighty, but makes mighty those he chooses. From the threshing floor to the battlefield, Gideon's life declared that victory belongs not to numbers, not to strength, but to obedience. He was the man who faced impossible odds and found that faith was stronger than fear. Through Gideon, the Lord showed that he can take the weakest vessel and make it a weapon of deliverance, a light in the darkest hour, a reminder that when God speaks, the smallest flame can become a blazing army.
For 400 years, the cries of a nation rose from the chains of Egypt. Generations born in bondage, praying for deliverance, waiting for a promise. And from the reeds of the Nile, a child was drawn, destined to set them free. He was raised in Pharaoh's palace, taught the wisdom of Egypt, clothed in its glory. But within him burned the fire of another kingdom. When he turned from the throne, the wilderness became his refuge and his refining. There, in the flames of a bush that would not burn, heaven spoke, "I have heard the cries of my people, now go." Armed with faith and a shepherd's staff, he stood before the gods of Egypt and declared the word of the Almighty. The Nile turned to blood. Darkness covered the land. Judgment fell like thunder. And when the night broke, the chains of 4 centuries shattered. Through parted waters, a nation walked free. But freedom was only the beginning, for the mountains still waited. There, in fire and cloud, the voice of God would speak again, and the law that shaped the world would be written by his hand. This is the story of faith against fear, of slavery broken by promise, of a deliverer chosen by God himself.
In the land of Egypt, where Pharaoh's power stretched like a shadow over the earth, the cries of Israel rose from the mud pits of slavery. Their sons were taken, their hands bound, their backs scarred by the whips of masters who feared their growing strength. Yet even in the darkness, God was weaving deliverance through the life of a child. When Pharaoh commanded that every Hebrew boy be cast into the Nile, a woman of faith hid her son for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she placed him in a basket coated with tar and pitch, setting him among the reeds of the river. The waters that had drowned many now carried one chosen for life. Pharaoh's daughter came to bathe, and when she saw the basket, her heart was moved. She opened it, and the baby wept. She named him Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." Raised in the palace of Egypt, Moses learned the language of kings, but never forgot the cries of his people. One day, seeing an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, he struck the oppressor down and buried him in the sand. But word spread, and Pharaoh sought his life. Moses fled into the wilderness of Midian, a prince turned wanderer tending sheep in the quiet shadows of exile. Yet it was in that silence that God chose to speak. One day, as Moses led the flock near Mount Horeb, he saw a bush that burned with fire but was not consumed. Drawn by wonder, he turned aside, and a voice called from the flame, "Moses, Moses." He answered, "Here I am." And God said, "Do not come near. Remove your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy ground." I have seen the affliction of my people in Egypt, and I have come down to deliver them. I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people out." Moses trembled. "Who am I that I should go?" But God replied, "I will be with you." Still Moses feared, "What if they do not believe me?" And the Lord said, "What is that in your hand?" He cast his staff to the ground, and it became a serpent. He fled, but God said, "Take it by the tail," and when he did, it became a staff again. "By this they will know that I am the Lord." So Moses went, with his brother Aaron beside him, to stand before Pharaoh. And when Pharaoh hardened his heart, God stretched out his hand. The Nile turned to blood, frogs swarmed the land. Darkness fell like a shroud over Egypt, yet still Pharaoh defied him. Then came the night of deliverance. Every home of Israel marked its doorposts with the blood of a lamb, and the angel of death passed over them. But in Egypt's houses a cry arose, for death had touched the firstborn of the proud. At last Pharaoh released them. The children of Israel went out with haste, led by the cloud of God by day and the fire of his presence by night. Yet soon Pharaoh pursued them with his army, and the people saw the sea before them and death behind. They cried out, but Moses lifted his staff, and the waters of the Red Sea split apart, standing like walls on either side. Israel walked through on dry ground. But when Pharaoh's chariots followed, the sea returned to its place, and not one enemy remained. On the other side, Miriam took her tambourine and sang, "The Lord has triumphed gloriously. The horse and rider he has thrown into the sea." In the wilderness, Moses led a nation through hunger, thirst, and fear. When they cried for bread, manna fell from heaven. When they thirsted, water flowed from the rock. When serpents came, God gave a bronze serpent lifted high that whoever looked upon it might live. And when they reached Mount Sinai, thunder rolled across the peaks. Lightning flashed, and the mountain burned with holy fire. There God spoke again, his voice like the sound of many waters, and gave to Moses the 10 Commandments, laws of righteousness carved by his own hand. But when Moses came down, the people had turned to a golden calf. In anger and grief he broke the tablets and fell before the Lord in intercession, pleading for mercy. God heard and renewed his covenant. Then he gave Moses the design of the tabernacle, a dwelling for his glory among men. Skilled hands wove curtains of fine linen and gold. The ark of the covenant was overlaid with pure gold, and the cloud of God filled the tent. There between the cherubim his presence rested. Through the years of wandering, God performed wonders. Manna each morning, pillars of cloud and fire, victories over enemies and mercy after rebellion. Yet Moses, though he spoke with God face to face as a friend, would not enter the promised land. On Mount Nebo, the Lord showed him the land from afar, the hills, the rivers, the valleys of promise. And there Moses died, his eyes undimmed, his strength unabated. No man knew his burial place, but Israel wept for him 30 days, for never again arose a prophet like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, who saw his glory and carried his words to a nation born of deliverance.
From the waters of the Nile to the fire of Sinai, his life was a journey of deliverance, a testimony that God raises the lowly to confound the mighty, that he dwells among his people, and that no wilderness, no sea, no Pharaoh can silence the voice that speaks from the flame. Maybe you have run from your calling. Maybe you've hidden in your own wilderness, wondering if your time has passed. But remember, God still seeks a man, a heart willing to stand, a vessel through whom his power can flow. For the earnest expectation of creation still waits for the manifestation of the sons of God.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring videos. Thank you for watching.
The wilderness had ended. 40 years of wandering beneath a blazing sun were over. Before the people of Israel now stood the land of promise, and between them and their destiny, the towering city of Jericho. Its walls were thick and unyielding, its gates shut tight with iron. To the nations, Jericho was a fortress of stone. To Israel, it was an impossible barrier. But to God, it was already fallen. Joshua, servant of Moses and now leader of God's people, stood gazing at the city's battlements when a presence appeared before him, radiant, terrifying, holy. A man stood with a drawn sword in his hand. "Are you for us or for our enemies?" Joshua asked. "Neither," the man replied. but as commander of the army of the Lord I have now come." At that moment Joshua fell to the ground in worship. "What does my Lord say to his servant?" he asked. "Remove your sandals," said the commander, "for the place where you stand is holy." The battle for Jericho would not be fought with spears or swords, but with obedience and faith. The Lord gave Joshua his command: "March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, and when the priests blow the trumpets, have all the people shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse." No strategy, no siege. No army could explain what God was about to do. At dawn the next day, Israel moved out in silence. The Ark of the Covenant, the sign of God's presence, led the procession. Behind it marched the priests, the soldiers, and the people. They circled the city once, the sound of ram's horns echoing through the desert air. Jericho's warriors peered down from their walls, puzzled but unshaken. Day after day, the same ritual. March, blow the trumpets, say nothing, return to camp. Inside the city, fear began to grow. The people of Jericho had heard the stories, how the Lord had dried up the Red Sea, how he defeated mighty kings in the wilderness. Now they trembled behind their walls, waiting for a battle that never came. But on the 7th day, something changed. At sunrise, the people rose early. The priests lifted the ark, and the nation moved once more, not for 1 circuit, but for 7. Around and around they marched until the final lap was complete. Then Joshua raised his voice, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." The trumpets blasted. The people lifted a roar that shook the air. And suddenly, the earth trembled beneath their feet. The walls that had stood for generations began to crack, then crumble, then collapse entirely. Stone by stone, Jericho fell, not by human might, but by the power of God's word. Israel surged forward, claiming the city the Lord had delivered into their hands. Every promise he had spoken to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was being fulfilled before their eyes. But in the midst of destruction, mercy shone. For within Jericho lived Rahab, the woman who had hidden the spies and believed in the God of Israel. Her scarlet cord hung in her window, a sign of faith and salvation. Her household was spared and her name remembered forever among God's people. The fall of Jericho was more than a victory. It was a declaration that faith in God can bring down walls no human hand can move. No obstacle is too strong, no barrier too high when God's presence leads the way. The shouts of Israel still echo through the ages, not as noise of war, but as the sound of faith in motion. For every heart that believes, the walls still fall.
A king watched in fear as Israel drew near, a people no army could conquer, a nation marked by the very hand of God. In desperation, he sought a prophet, Balaam, a man whose words could shape the fate of nations. But the road to Moab was not his to command. An unseen hand rose against him, and a voice spoke from where no voice should come.
"What have I done?"
Even his own donkey saw the angel he refused to see. The king demanded a curse. Yet every time Balaam opened his mouth, blessing poured forth instead. Each word grew stronger than the one before, a truth no throne could silence. In the clash between greed and grace, one man learned that no bribe, no fear, and no king could overturn the will of God. For what he has blessed, no one can curse. This is the story of Balaam and Balak, a reminder that God's word stands, even when the world demands otherwise.
Beyond the Jordan, near the plains of Moab, the Israelites camped on the edge of Canaan. Their journey through the wilderness was nearly over, and every nation that rose against them had fallen. Word of their victory spread like wildfire through the lands. When Balak, king of Moab, heard how Israel had defeated the Amorites, fear gripped his heart. Their numbers were vast, like a sea of people covering the land. Their God was unlike any other, mighty in battle, faithful to his promise. Balak trembled, for he knew that no sword could stand against them. In desperation, he sought another way. If he could not defeat them by strength, perhaps he could destroy them by words. So he sent messengers eastward to a man known for his strange power, Balaam, son of Beor, a diviner whose blessings and curses were said to shape nations. Balak's messengers came bearing gifts of silver and honor. A people has come out of Egypt, they said. They cover the face of the land and are settling next to me. Come now, curse them for me, for they are too powerful. Then perhaps I will be able to drive them away. For I know that whomever you bless is blessed, and whomever you curse is cursed. That night God came to Balaam and asked, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam explained their message, and God answered, "Do not go with them. You must not curse these people, for they are blessed." When morning came, Balaam told the princes of Moab, "Go back to your own country, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." But Balak would not take no for an answer. He sent more distinguished officials, promising greater rewards and riches beyond imagination. "Let nothing hinder you from coming to me," he pleaded, "for I will surely honor you greatly." Once again Balaam sought God's word, and the Lord said, "Go with them, but do only what I tell you." So Balaam saddled his donkey and set out with the princes of Moab. But though he went, God's anger burned against him, for Balaam's heart longed for the reward more than obedience. As he journeyed, the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him, sword drawn. But Balaam could not see the angel, only his donkey saw. 3 times the angel stood in his path, first in the open road, then between vineyards, and finally in a narrow place where there was no room to turn. Each time the donkey turned aside, crushing Balaam's foot against a wall. In anger, Balaam struck the animal, and then in a moment that silenced the desert winds, the Lord opened the donkey's mouth.
"What have I done, that you struck me these 3 times?
She said. Balaam shouted back, blinded by rage, "You have made a fool of me. If I had a sword, I would kill you right now." The donkey replied, "Am I not your own donkey which you have always ridden? Have I ever done this to you before?" Balaam paused. "No," he admitted. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing before him, sword gleaming. Balaam fell face down to the ground. "Why have you beaten your donkey?" the angel said. "I have come to oppose you because your way is reckless before me." "The donkey saw me and turned away. If she had not, I would have killed you and spared her." Terrified, Balaam cried out, "I have sinned. If my journey displeases you, I will go back." The angel replied, "Go with the men, but speak only what I tell you." When Balaam finally stood before King Balak, the king said, "I brought you here to curse my enemies. Why have you delayed?" But Balaam answered, "Even if Balak gave me his palace filled with silver and gold, I could not say anything beyond the command of the Lord my God." From the heights of Moab, they looked down upon Israel's vast camp. Balak waited eagerly for a curse, but when Balaam opened his mouth, only blessing poured forth. "How can I curse those whom God has not cursed?" he proclaimed. "From the rocky peaks I see them, a people who dwell apart and are not counted among the nations. The Lord their God is with them, and the shout of a king is among them." Balak's face burned with fury. "What have you done to me? I brought you to curse my enemies, but you have blessed them." Balaam replied, "Must I not speak what the Lord puts in my mouth?" Again and again Balak led Balaam to different high places, hoping a change of view might change God's will. But every time the Spirit of God came upon Balaam, and he spoke blessings instead of curses.
Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, neither is there any divination against Israel. According to this time it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel, "What hath God wrought? Behold, the people shall rise up as a great lion, and lift up himself as a young lion. He shall not lie down until he eats of the prey, and drinks the blood of the slain."
At last Balaam declared, "A star will come out of Jacob, a scepter will rise out of Israel. It will crush the foreheads of Moab and break down all the sons of Sheth." Balak's anger blazed. "Go home. The Lord has kept you from reward." And Balaam answered, "Did I not tell your messengers that I could do nothing on my own? What the Lord speaks, that I must speak." Then he departed, and the king returned to his city. Through Balaam's story, we see that no spell, no curse, no power of man can stand against the will of God.
There are men who blaze a trail toward God, and others who light a path away from him. Through the story of Balaam, we learn that a man can pioneer a blessing or a curse for generations yet unborn. Just as Abraham became the father of faith, the one who believed God against all odds, Balaam became the father of greed, the prophet who saw the glory of heaven, yet bowed to the glitter of gold. His name echoes in the warnings of Scripture. Woe unto them, says Jude, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward. And Peter cries, they have forsaken the right way, following the way of Balaam, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. Balaam's story is a mirror, showing us how divine gifts can be twisted by selfish desire, how a calling can be sold for a price. For every Balaam, there is an Abraham. For every prophet who bargains with kings, there is one who kneels before God. So, let us learn this truth, that godliness with contentment is great gain. Seek righteousness, pursue holiness, for the paths we walk today will become the roads the next generation will follow.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring videos. Thank you for watching.
From the shadows of the wilderness, fierce and hungry, it descended upon the flock. No army stood beside the young shepherd. No armor covered him. With only a sling, a stone, and an unshakable trust in God, the shepherd faced death and did not run. This is where the legend begins. Before kings were crowned, before giants fell, there was a shepherd. His name, David. This episode reveals the moment that shaped David's destiny, not on a battlefield of men, but in the wilderness, where faith was tested, courage was proven, and a boy became a warrior long before the world knew his name. David and the fiercest lion. This is the beginning.
In the rolling hills of Bethlehem, where the sun cast long shadows across the verdant landscape, a young shepherd boy named David watched over his father's flock. He was the youngest of his family, tasked with the humble duty of tending sheep. With a harp in his hand and a song in his heart, he would sit beneath the shade of an olive tree, his melodies drifting on the breeze, a soothing balm to the animals under his care. His connection with them was profound. He knew each one, guiding them with a gentle hand to fresh pastures and cool, life-giving streams. The life of a shepherd was one of quiet solitude, but it was here, in the vast open country, that David learned the rhythms of nature and the meaning of steadfast vigilance. While David's world was one of pastoral peace, his three eldest brothers were called to a different path. Dressed in the armor of soldiers, they marched off to join the armies of King Saul, their figures receding into the distance as they answered the call to war. From a hilltop, David watched them go, a complex mix of admiration for their bravery and a quiet sense of being left behind stirring within him. Yet his own courage was not untested. The wilderness held dangers far greater than a wandering lamb. When a fierce lion, driven by hunger, descended upon his flock, David did not flee. With nothing but his simple sling and a stone, he faced the predator, his faith unshakable and his aim true, protecting his charge with a bravery that belied his youthful appearance.
Come here, my son. I want you to take food to your brothers at the battlefield.
As the battle turned in our favor, how are my brothers holding up?
Pray for them.
One day, David's father, Jesse, summoned him from the fields. He was to carry provisions, parched grain and loaves of bread, to his brothers who were encamped with the Israelite army in the valley of Elah. The journey was long, taking him from the familiar hills of his youth to the tense, bustling atmosphere of a military camp, poised for battle. Upon arriving, he found his brothers among the ranks of soldiers.
Why have you come down here? Who did you leave those few sheep with in the wilderness?
But his presence was not welcomed.
I know your pride and the arrogance of your heart. You came just to watch the battle, leaving your duties behind.
Eliab, his oldest brother, met him with a sharp rebuke, his words dripping with scorn, questioning David's motives for leaving the sheep and coming to the front lines.
Go back home, shepherd boy. You don't belong here.
The anger in his brother's voice was a stark contrast to the urgent task at hand. Though stung by the harsh dismissal, David's spirit was not broken. He turned his attention away from his brother's anger and toward the valley that separated the two opposing armies. His gaze was drawn to the camp of the Philistines, where a challenge was being issued that struck fear into the hearts of Israel's mightiest warriors. As he listened, a flashback seared through his mind, the image of the defeated lion, a testament not to his own strength, but to the power of his unwavering faith. In that moment, something shifted. The shepherd boy was no longer just a bringer of food. A newfound resolve settled over him, a quiet determination burning in his eyes, hinting at the extraordinary destiny that was about to unfold.
In our next episode, we shall behold a battle not fought by sword or spear, but by the power of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel. When a giant rises in defiance, mocking the living God, and fear grips the hearts of kings and warriors alike, a shepherd is called from the fields. Not trained for war, yet chosen by God, David steps forward in faith where others fall back in fear. What follows is not the triumph of strength over strength, but the victory of faith over fear. A moment ordained by heaven, destined to echo through generations, David and Goliath coming next.
He was born in the shadow of greatness, the son of a warrior king, destined not for battle, but for wisdom.
When the weight of a nation fell upon his shoulders, he knelt, not to ask for power nor riches, but for understanding. And heaven answered. From the lips of a humble boy came judgments that silenced the proud, and wisdom that drew kings from distant lands. Gold flowed through his streets. Silver was as common as stone. The world bowed before his throne. But the same heart that once sought God began to drift from him. And the king who had everything discovered the emptiness of having it all. He built the greatest temple ever seen, yet lost sight of the one it was built for. In the end, his words echoed through eternity, a warning and a truth. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. This is not just the story of wealth, it's the story of wisdom, worship, and the price of forgetting where both begin. This is the story of King Solomon.
In the twilight of King David's reign, the sound of harps grew softer in Jerusalem. The warrior who once slew giants and sang to God in the wilderness now walked with trembling steps through the halls of his palace. He called for Solomon, the son of Bathsheba, a prince not of conquest but of peace.
"My son,"
said, his voice heavy with the weight of years,
"I go the way of all the earth. Be strong and shew yourself a man. Keep his statutes and command, that you may prosper in all that you do. Walk in the ways of your Lord your God. For the Lord promised that if my sons walk faithfully, there shall not fail a man upon the throne.
With those words, the crown passed from a warrior to a thinker, from a man after God's heart to one whose mind would dazzle nations. Solomon ascended the throne young and unsure, surrounded by the echoes of his father's legacy. One night, as he offered sacrifices at Gibeon, the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said,
"Ask for whatever you desire, and I will give it to you."
Solomon, humbled and trembling, replied,
"O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of David my father. Yet I am but a child. Give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people and to discern between good and evil."
The request pleased God. "Because you have asked for wisdom and not for riches or long life or vengeance, I will give you a wise and discerning heart, and I will give you also what you did not ask for, both riches and honor, so that no king shall compare with you." When Solomon awoke, he fell to his knees. From that day, wisdom flowed from his mouth like rivers of gold. 2 women came before him, both claiming to be the mother of a living child. The court held its breath as Solomon called for a sword.
"Divide the child in 2 and give half to each."
But one woman cried out,
"Give her the child, only do not kill her."
Then Solomon knew she was the true mother, and all Israel marveled at the wisdom of their king. Years passed, and Solomon's fame spread beyond the borders of Israel. Kings and queens came to hear his words. The Queen of Sheba journeyed from afar, bearing spices and gold to test him with questions. When she saw his wisdom, the splendor of his palace, the order of his servants, and the glory of his temple, her spirit was overwhelmed. "Blessed be the Lord your God," she said, "who has delighted in you to set you on the throne of Israel." For Solomon built a house for the name of the Lord, a temple of cedar and gold, where priests ministered and the Ark of the Covenant rested beneath wings of cherubim. On the day of dedication, fire descended from heaven and consumed the offerings, and the glory of the Lord filled the house so that the priests could not enter. The people bowed with their faces to the ground, crying, "The Lord is good, his mercy endures forever." Solomon lifted his hands to heaven and prayed,
Lord God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven above or on earth beneath. Hear the cry of your servant and of your people when they pray toward this place, and forgive.
And God answered,
"I have heard your prayer. I have chosen this house as a dwelling for my name."
The kingdom flourished. Silver was as common as stones in Jerusalem. Ships returned from far lands bearing gold, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Wisdom and wealth crowned Solomon's reign, and peace covered the land. Yet in the midst of splendor, the heart of the king began to wander. He loved many foreign women, daughters of nations God had forbidden: Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. He built altars for their gods, Chemosh, Molech, and Ashtoreth, and bowed beside them. The songs once written for Yahweh turned to whispers of compromise. The hands that built the temple of God now raised incense to idols. The Lord appeared to Solomon a second time and warned him, "If you or your descendants turn away and serve other gods, this house will become a heap of ruins, and Israel will become a byword among the nations." But Solomon did not turn. His wisdom could discern justice for others, but could not rescue his own soul. The man who once judged with divine clarity was now clouded by desire. His heart, once the dwelling of truth, became divided, and with it his kingdom. Enemies rose on every side. Hadad the Edomite and Rezon the rebel stirred war against him, and Jeroboam, one of his own servants, lifted a hand of defiance. When Solomon died, the throne of Israel was fractured, and the golden age ended in shadow. The king who began with a heart of prayer ended with silence. Yet even in his fall, the echo of his wisdom endures, that everything under the sun is vanity unless it is anchored in God. For Solomon learned too late that knowledge without obedience leads to ruin, and glory without devotion fades like morning mist. His life remains a mirror, that the greatest mind can lose its way when the heart forgets its maker.
Solomon's story reminds us that wealth and riches fade, but a heart rich toward God endures forever. True treasure isn't found on earth, it's stored in eternity. As Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you." Remember, We are called to walk in His ways, to keep His commands, and to live with the awareness that we are stewards of every resource entrusted to us. All that we have is given for a purpose, to advance the kingdom of God.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring videos. Thank you for watching.
Centuries before he drew breath, a nameless prophet stood before an altar at Bethel. The smoke of idolatry filled the air, and the people bowed before carved images. Yet in that dark hour the man of God cried out against the altar, "Behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name. Upon you he shall sacrifice the priests of the high places who burn incense upon you." The words echoed through generations buried in time, waiting for their appointed day. Years rolled into centuries. Kingdoms rose and fell. Judah wandered far from her covenant, worshiping the gods of the nations. Kings came and went, but few sought the Lord. Then in the shadow of decay a child was born, Josiah, son of Amon, heir to David's throne. He was only 8 when the crown was set upon his head, a boy surrounded by corruption and idols. Yet within him burned a quiet light, a spark not of his own making, but of divine promise whispered long ago. At 16, while the world still saw him as a boy, Josiah began to seek the God of David his father. The idols that towered in his city became a burden to his soul. By 20, that burden became fire. He tore down the altars of Baal, smashed the carved images, and ground them into dust. He defiled the high places where false priests burned incense to gods that could not hear. The smoke of rebellion was replaced by the dust of repentance. Across Judah the land trembled, for righteousness had awakened. But Josiah's zeal did not end there. When he turned his heart to repair the house of the Lord, the priests found a forgotten scroll, the book of the law. It had lain hidden beneath years of neglect, buried under the weight of sin. When the words were read before the young king, his heart broke. He tore his robes and wept. "Great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us," he said, "because our fathers have not obeyed the words of this book." His tears fell upon the floor of the temple like offerings more precious than gold. Then Josiah gathered all the people, from the least to the greatest, and stood beside a pillar in the house of God. With trembling voice he renewed the covenant between God and his people, vowing to follow the Lord and keep his commandments with all his heart and soul. The people stood with him, and for the first time in generations the echo of faith returned to Judah's streets. Josiah's reformation swept across the land like a holy wind. He cleansed the cities, destroyed the idols, and fulfilled the ancient prophecy written of him long ago. Journeying to Bethel, he stood before the same altar where the nameless prophet had once spoken. Time bowed its head as prophecy met fulfillment. Josiah burned the bones of the false priests upon that altar, just as the man of God had foretold. The fire that rose from Bethel that day was not of destruction, but of divine remembrance, proof that every word of God endures. And then came the Passover. No feast like it had been kept since the days of Samuel the prophet. From every corner of Judah, families gathered. Lambs were slain, songs of deliverance filled the air, and the people remembered their covenant with the living God. The land glowed with the light of revival. Kings before him had sought glory. Josiah sought God. Yet the story of the righteous often ends in mystery. When Pharaoh Necho marched north to war, Josiah went out to meet him, though God had not sent him. On the plains of Megiddo, the archers drew their bows, and the king was struck. His servants carried him from the field, bleeding and broken. As the chariots rolled toward Jerusalem, the city wept. The boy who had torn down idols, the man who had restored the covenant, now lay silent. Jeremiah the prophet lifted his voice in lament, and all Judah mourned. "Alas, our light is dimmed," they cried. "The flame of the righteous has fallen." But though Josiah's body rested in the tomb, his legacy burned on. Through him, God had shown that one heart set aflame could turn a nation from ruin. From the prophecy at Bethel to the ashes of Megiddo, Josiah's life was a living testimony that no word of God falls to the ground unfulfilled. He was the king who rediscovered the word, the reformer who reignited the altar, the chosen one whose name was written in prophecy before his first breath. His crown was not of gold but of faith, and his reign, though brief, blazed with the glory of obedience. He was not a king nor the son of a priest, yet his voice carried the fire of heaven. He came from Tishbe, a rugged man of the wilderness, clothed in camel's hair, with nothing but a word from the Lord burning in his heart. When Israel bowed to Baal and the land groaned under idolatry, God raised up Elijah, a prophet who would confront kings, call down fire, and intercede for his people. The land trembled under Ahab and Jezebel. Jezebel spread Baal worship, built altars, and hunted down prophets. Into this storm walked Elijah. He declared to Ahab, "As the Lord lives, there will be neither dew nor rain except at my word." Then he vanished. For years, famine gripped the land. God hid him by the brook Cherith, where ravens brought bread and meat. When the brook dried, God sent him to a widow in Zarephath. Her flour did not run out, her oil did not fail. And when her son died, Elijah cried out to God, and life returned. Even in famine, God's power flowed through his prophet. But the true test was yet to come. After 3 years, Elijah returned to Ahab. On Mount Carmel, he summoned Israel and 450 prophets of Baal. How long will you waver? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal, follow him. The contest was set. 2 bulls, 2 altars, and the God who answered by fire. From morning till evening, the prophets of Baal shouted, danced, and cut themselves. Elijah mocked them. "Shout louder." Maybe he's deep in thought, busy or asleep. But no voice came. Then Elijah rebuilt the Lord's altar with 12 stones, laid the sacrifice, and drenched it with water until the trench overflowed. At evening sacrifice he prayed, "O Lord, let it be known that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant." Then fire fell, consuming the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, the water. The people fell on their faces, crying, "The Lord, he is God." The prophets of Baal were seized, their lies silenced. But Elijah was not finished. He climbed Carmel, bowed low, and prayed for rain. 7 times he sent his servant to look toward the sea. At last, a small cloud appeared. Soon the sky grew black, the wind rose, and heavy rain poured. The drought was broken, yet fear gripped him when Jezebel vowed to kill him. He fled into the wilderness and prayed to die. But God was not done. An angel touched him with bread and water for the journey. For 40 days he traveled to Mount Horeb. There he waited. A mighty wind tore the mountains, but God was not in the wind. An earthquake shook the ground, but God was not in the quake. A fire blazed, but God was not in the fire. Then came a gentle whisper. Elijah pulled his cloak over his face. The God of fire was also the God of stillness. He renewed Elijah's calling, reminding him that divine power is not only in spectacle but in the unseen. Strengthened, Elijah returned to anoint kings and raise Elisha as his successor. He was more than a prophet of fire. He was an intercessor, standing between heaven and earth, pleading for rain, for mercy, and for his people. In the end, Elijah's life did not close in death. On the far side of the Jordan, with Elisha at his side, a chariot of fire and horses of flame appeared. A whirlwind carried him upward, and he was gone, taken into the presence of God. Elisha cried, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel." The mantle of Elijah fell, passing the prophet's fire to the next generation. Elijah's story is one of thunder and whisper, of fire and rain, of fear and faith. He reminds us that one voice, surrendered to God, can confront kings, silence idols, and turn a nation's heart. His courage burned like fire. His prayers watered the earth. James later wrote, "Elijah was a man like us. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not. Again he prayed, and the heavens gave rain." The question remains, when the world bows to idols and fear silences faith, will you stand as Elijah did? Will you call on the Lord, intercede for others, and trust his fire and whisper alike? For who knows but that you too have come to your place, your moment, your influence for such a time as this.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring videos. Thank you for watching.
It was a time of exile and despair. The people of Israel sat weeping by the rivers of Babylon, their harps silent, their hope extinguished. Jerusalem lay in ruins, her temple burned, her walls fallen. The glory that once filled the city had departed. And among the captives stood a man named Ezekiel, priest, prophet, and watchman of God's voice in a land of silence. The word of the Lord came to him not in the comfort of sanctuary, but in the midst of captivity, carried by the wind of revelation. One day the hand of the Lord came upon Ezekiel and carried him in the Spirit of God to a valley, vast, desolate, and covered with bones. As far as his eyes could see, the ground was littered with the remains of the slain, bleached by sun and time, lifeless and forgotten. The Spirit led him back and forth among them until the weight of death pressed upon his soul. Then came the voice of the Lord echoing through the emptiness.
Son of man, can these bones live?
Ezekiel looked upon the dry, scattered bones, the final image of hopelessness, and answered, O sovereign Lord, you alone know. Then the Lord said, Prophesy to these bones and say to them, Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the sovereign Lord to these bones, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live. Ezekiel stood in the valley surrounded by death and lifted his voice. As he prophesied, a sound began, faint at first, then rising into a trembling roar. Bones began to rattle, moving across the valley floor, finding one another by divine design. Bone came to bone, joint to joint, until skeletons stood upright in unison. Then tendons formed, flesh covered them, and skin wrapped over the lifeless forms. Yet there was no breath in them. They stood as still figures, complete but without life. Then the voice came again, Prophesy to the breath, Son of Man. Say to the wind, Thus says the sovereign Lord, Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe into these slain that they may live. Ezekiel lifted his hands toward the heavens and called for the breath of God, and the Spirit moved across the valley like a rushing wind. It entered the lifeless bodies, and one by one the dead began to breathe. Chests rose, eyes opened, and what was once a field of bones became an army, vast, strong, and alive. Then the Lord spoke again, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. They say, Our bones are dried up, our hope is gone, and we are cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, Thus says the sovereign Lord, My people, I will open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am the Lord when I put my Spirit in you and you live. Ezekiel fell to his knees, trembling before the power of the living God. The vision was more than a resurrection of flesh. It was a revelation of divine promise. God would breathe again upon his covenant people. Though scattered and exiled, though their nation seemed lost, his Spirit would restore what sin and sorrow had destroyed. In that valley, death bowed to the voice of prophecy. The God who formed man from dust had once again called life from lifelessness. The same breath that stirred the waters of creation now moved among bones, proving that no grave, no nation, no heart is beyond his reach. And so Ezekiel rose not as a captive of Babylon, but as a herald of hope. The vision burned within him, a fire no exile could quench. For the Spirit of God had revealed the mystery of restoration, that even when all seems lost, the word still speaks, and the breath still moves. Centuries later, that same breath would descend again, in a rushing wind at Pentecost, filling hearts with life eternal. The Valley of Dry Bones was not just a prophecy of Israel's return, but of humanity's redemption. The God who raised an army from dust still calls to the lifeless soul, live. From the silence of despair to the roar of revival, the valley became a witness that when God speaks, death must listen. And to every generation that walks through desolation, the message remains unchanged. No grave is too deep, no heart too cold, no dream too dead for the breath of God to restore. She was not born into royalty, nor raised with power. She was an orphan in exile, living in the shadow of a vast empire. Yet the destiny of her people would rest not in armies or kings, but in her quiet courage. When the decree of death sealed the fate of the Jews across Persia, hope seemed lost. But God raised up Esther, a woman hidden behind palace walls whose faith became the turning point of history. She wielded no sword, but carried a greater weapon, trust in the unseen hand of God. This is the story of providence and courage. The Persian Empire stretched from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces under King Xerxes, called Ahasuerus. His throne stood in Susa, his feast dazzling nobles and princes alike, yet power is fragile. When Queen Vashti refused to appear before drunken nobles, she was stripped of her crown. To preserve his pride, Xerxes ordered a search for a new queen. Among those taken was a young Jewish woman named Hadassah, called Esther in the palace. Raised by her cousin Mordecai after losing her parents, she possessed beauty that captivated all who saw her, yet her true radiance lay in quiet strength. Keeping her heritage secret as Mordecai advised, she awaited God's unseen plan. When her turn before the king came, Esther asked for nothing beyond what was given. Xerxes was captivated and set the crown upon her head. An orphan became queen, but the favor of man was only the beginning. In the king's court rose Haman, an Amalekite and enemy of Israel. Elevated above nobles, he demanded obeisance. Mordecai refused, fearing God alone. Haman's pride burned into rage, not just against Mordecai, but against all Jews. Through cunning, Haman secured a royal decree. On one appointed day, every Jew in the empire would be annihilated. Letters spread and fear fell on God's people. Mordecai in sackcloth and ashes wept at the gate. Learning of this, Esther sent to inquire, and the decree was revealed. Mordecai's message pierced her heart.
Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone will escape. If you remain silent, deliverance will arise from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position
For such a time as this. In the stillness of her chamber, Esther made her choice. She sent word,
Gather all the Jews in Susa, fast for me 3 days. I and my maids will do the same. Then, though it's against the law, I will go to the king. And if I perish, I perish.
3 days passed. With trembling hands but resolute heart, Esther donned her royal robes and entered the throne room uninvited. Silence fell. The king looked up, saw Esther, and extended the golden scepter. What is it, Queen Esther?
What is your request? Even to the half of the kingdom. It will be given to you.
God had gone before her. With wisdom, she did not reveal her petition at once, but invited the king and Haman to a banquet, and then another. She waited for the perfect moment. At the second feast, the king pressed her again. Esther spoke.
If I have found favor, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people, for we have been sold for destruction.
The king's fury blazed.
Who dares to do this?
Esther's words struck like lightning.
The adversary is this vile Haman.
Terror swept Haman's face as judgment fell. The gallows he built for Mordecai became his own end. Yet the decree of death remained, for the laws of Persia could not be revoked. But the king granted Esther and Mordecai authority to write a new edict, allowing the Jews to defend themselves. When the day came, the tables turned. Instead of destruction, the Jews triumphed. Across the empire, their enemies were defeated. Mourning became joy, fasting turned to feasting, despair gave way to hope. From that day, the Feast of Purim was established, a celebration of deliverance, remembering how God rescued his people through one woman's courage. Esther's story testifies to God's unseen hand. Even when his name goes unspoken, he elevates the unlikely, positions his people, and turns enemy schemes into victory. The question remains, will we stay silent or step forward in faith?
To stand for God is to blaze in righteousness and declare, if I perish, I perish. Esther spoke these words and lived to see her people saved. The 3 Hebrew men declared, our God can deliver us, but if not, we will not bow. And God walked with them in the fire. Daniel kept praying, though it meant the lion's den, and the Lord shut the lions' mouths. Again and again, those who stood boldly did not perish, for God glorified himself through their faith.
For who knows but that you too have come to your place, your moment, your influence for such a time as this.
Check out our other videos and leave a comment below. We can't wait to hear what you think. Thanks for watching.
He was not born into power nor raised among kings. He was a youth from Judah, taken from his home when Babylon's armies tore through Jerusalem. Carried into exile, stripped of freedom, he stood in the shadow of an empire that seemed unshakable. And yet through this young captive, God revealed his sovereignty over nations and rulers. When Babylon's grandeur towered like a mountain and idols demanded worship, hope seemed all but lost for God's exiled people. But in the midst of golden palaces and fiery furnaces, God raised up Daniel, a man whose wisdom outshone magicians, whose prayers reached heaven, whose faith silenced lions. He was not only a prophet but an intercessor, standing in the gap for his people. This is the story of devotion against compromise, of courage in the face of death, and of the unstoppable kingdom of God breaking through earthly courts. A story in which the glory would not go to Babylon nor to Persia, but to the God who rules forever. Babylon was vast and fierce. Its walls rose high, its temples glittered with gold, its gardens hung with green life above desert sands. King Nebuchadnezzar reigned from a throne feared across nations. To this palace, Daniel and his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were brought. They were trained in the wisdom of Babylon, fed from the king's table. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with food sacrificed to idols. Quietly, he asked for vegetables and water instead. It seemed small, but it was a declaration. His loyalty belonged to God alone. And God honored him, granting favor and wisdom 10 times greater than all Babylon's wise men. Years passed. Nebuchadnezzar dreamed a dream none could interpret. Furious, he ordered all wise men slain. But Daniel sought God in prayer, interceding with his friends through the night, and the mystery was revealed. Standing before the throne, Daniel declared, "There is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." The dream spoke of kingdoms that would rise and fall: Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. But in the end, a stone not cut by human hands would strike and grow into a mountain filling the earth. God's eternal kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar bowed before Daniel, confessing, "Truly your God is the God of gods." Yet Babylon's pride soon returned. A golden image was raised 90 feet high, and all were commanded to bow. Daniel's friends refused. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were cast into a blazing furnace. The flames roared, but inside the fire they walked unbound. A fourth figure appeared with them, radiant, divine. They emerged untouched, and the empire trembled. Nebuchadnezzar decreed that no one speak against their God. Still, kingdoms rise and fall. Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, mocked the Most High, drinking from the temple's sacred cups. Suddenly, a hand appeared, writing on the wall, "Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin." None could read it until Daniel came. With steady voice, he declared,
God has numbered your days, you have been weighed and found wanting. Your kingdom is given to the Medes and Persians.
That very night Babylon fell. Under King Darius, Daniel's faith was tested again. Jealous officials, unable to find fault in him, trapped him through his prayers. A law was signed. No one could pray to any god or man but Darius. Yet Daniel, as always, opened his window toward Jerusalem and prayed 3 times a day. He interceded for his people and sought God without fear. The trap was sprung. Daniel was cast into the lion's den. The stone rolled across its mouth. That night the king could not sleep. At dawn he rushed and cried, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God rescued you?" From the shadows came the calm reply,
My God sent his angel and shut the mouths of the lions.
Daniel emerged unharmed, for he had trusted in God. Darius rejoiced and sent a decree declaring Daniel's God to be the living God who endures forever. Through visions and prayers, fiery furnaces, and lions' dens, Daniel's life testified to God's sovereignty. Kings came and went. Babylon fell to Persia, Persia to Greece, Greece to Rome. But God's kingdom stands forever. Daniel's story is not about earthly power, but about prayer, faith, and obedience. As an intercessor, he prayed for Israel's restoration, confessing their sins and pleading for mercy. God heard, sending answers through angels and visions of what was to come. He reminds us that even in exile, even under rulers who oppose God, his hand directs history. Thrones topple, empires crumble, but God's kingdom endures. The question remains, when the world commands you to bow, when culture demands your silence, will you, like Daniel, kneel in prayer? Will you stand when others fall? For who knows but that you too have been placed in your moment, your position, your influence, for such a time as this.
Check out our other videos and leave a comment below. We can't wait to hear what you think. Thanks for watching.
He was not a king, nor a warrior, nor a prophet. He was a cupbearer, a servant in the palace of a foreign empire. Yet through this ordinary man, God would rebuild a broken city, restore a scattered people, and reignite a nation's faith. This is the story of Nehemiah, a man of prayer and perseverance who faced opposition, discouragement, and danger, yet never lost sight of the God who called him. The land of Judah lay in ruins. Decades earlier, Babylon had stormed Jerusalem, tearing down its walls and burning its gates. Though some exiles had returned under Zerubbabel and Ezra, the city remained vulnerable, its people disgraced, its enemies mocking. Far away in the citadel of Susa, Nehemiah served King Artaxerxes as cupbearer. Trusted with the king's life, he held a position of influence, yet his heart was not with Persia's wealth or power. it was with his people. When his brother Hanani returned from Judah with news, Nehemiah eagerly asked about Jerusalem. The answer shattered him.
The remnant who survived the exile is in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire.
When Nehemiah heard this, he wept. He mourned for days, fasting and praying before the God of heaven. His prayer was not shallow or quick, but deep, broken, and humble.
O Lord, the God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps covenant and love, let your ear be attentive to the prayer your servant is praying. We have sinned greatly against you. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man.
This man was none other than the king of Persia. To appear before him sad was dangerous. To make a request could mean death. Yet Nehemiah's burden outweighed his fear. When the king noticed his downcast face and asked the reason, Nehemiah whispered a prayer and spoke boldly. May the king live forever. Why should my face not be sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins, and its gates destroyed by fire? A pause hung in the air. Then the king asked, What is it you want? Nehemiah prayed again, then asked for permission to return and rebuild Jerusalem. By God's hand, the king granted his request. Letters of safe passage, resources, even royal authority. What began as a burden in prayer became a mission backed by heaven. When Nehemiah arrived in Jerusalem, he inspected the broken walls by night. Stones lay scattered, gates were charred, the city defenseless. The sight only deepened his resolve. He gathered the leaders and declared, You see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, its gates burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall and we will no longer live in disgrace. Hope stirred in weary hearts. The people replied, Let us start rebuilding. And so they set their hands to the work. But enemies soon rose. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem mocked and ridiculed them, sneering that even a fox climbing on their wall would cause it to collapse. Yet Nehemiah answered with unshakable faith,
The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will rebuild.
Families repaired the wall together. Priests, merchants, goldsmiths, perfumers. Each one had a part. As gaps closed, threats increased. Enemies plotted to attack and fear spread. But Nehemiah rallied the people with courage. Don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and daughters, your wives and your homes. So they built with one hand and carried weapons with the other. Half worked, half stood guard. Trumpets were ready to sound alarm. Opposition could not break them, for their strength was the Lord's. In just 52 days, the wall of Jerusalem was rebuilt, so swift and miraculous that even the enemies knew it was by God's power. Yet Nehemiah's work was more than stone and mortar. It was about hearts. Under his leadership, Ezra the scribe read the law of God aloud. As the words filled the air, the people wept in repentance. But Nehemiah reminded them, Do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. The city was restored, worship renewed, and faith rekindled. Nehemiah was not the strongest nor the most powerful, but he was a man who prayed, acted, and persevered. His story reminds us that great change often begins with a burden on one heart, surrendered to God in prayer, carried out in faith, and strengthened by perseverance. And so the question remains, will you, like Nehemiah, take the brokenness around you to God? Will you rise to pray, to act, to stand firm, even when opposition is fierce? For the God who rebuilt Jerusalem's walls still restores lives, families, and nations today.
It only takes one bold step of faith to silence the enemy. Heaven waits for a remnant, fearless and steadfast, to rise and rebel against the forces of darkness. Remember, it's not too late to rebuild.
Check out our other videos and leave a comment below. We can't wait to hear what you think. Thanks for watching.
In the hills of Judea, beneath a sky heavy with the glow of evening, a father stood upon his land, a man of wealth and wisdom, whose fields stretched wide with promise. His sons were the pride of his heart, the elder steady and obedient, the younger restless and full of dreams. Yet in the younger's eyes burned a hunger that no inheritance could yet satisfy, the longing for a life unbound, untouched by rules or restraint. One morning as the sun rose over the vineyard, the younger son came to his father. "Father," he said, his voice trembling with desire and defiance. "Give me my share of the estate. What would be mine when you are gone?" The request fell like a blade upon the father's heart, but he did not withhold. With quiet sorrow, he divided the property, granting to his son what he had not yet earned. And not many days later, the young man gathered all he had, turned his back on the hills of home, and journeyed to a far country. There, in cities lit by the glow of endless nights, he wasted his inheritance in reckless living. Gold slipped through his fingers like sand. Laughter filled the taverns, but it was hollow. Companionship bought, not born. He feasted, he danced, he drowned himself in indulgence. Yet with every pleasure, his soul grew emptier. Then the famine came, the fields dried. The markets emptied, the laughter ceased, and the same friends who had toasted his fortune now vanished like shadows at dawn. Alone and destitute, he wandered through the streets of the foreign land, his fine robes now rags. Hunger gnawed at him until he took the only work he could find, feeding swine in a stranger's field. Day after day he slumped in the mud, watching the pigs eat what he himself longed for, the son of a noble house reduced to envy beasts. Then one day, broken and silent, he lifted his eyes to the heavens. A thought pierced the darkness. How many of my father's servants have bread enough and to spare, and here I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father and say,
"Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and am not longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your higher servants."
With that spark of repentance, he rose. His steps were slow and weary. Each mile homeward was a battle between shame and hope. The road stretched endlessly. The same road he had once walked in arrogance now trod in humility. Dust clung to his face. His heart trembled with every step. What if his father refused him? What if the door remained closed? But even before he reached the gate, his father saw him, a distant figure on the horizon. The old man's heart leapt. For every day since his son's departure, he had watched that road, praying, waiting. Now the prayer was answered. Compassion surged through him. Gathering his robes, the father ran as though time itself could not keep him back. When the son fell to his knees, beginning his confession, "Father, I have sinned," the words broke in his throat as his father's arms wrapped around him. The embrace silenced the shame. The father wept and kissed his son's dirt-streaked face. "Bring the best robe," he cried to the servants, "and put it on him. Place a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. Kill the fatted calf, let there be music and dancing. For my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And so the house was filled with joy. The sound of instruments and laughter rose into the night like the echo of grace itself. Yet in the field, the elder brother heard the celebration and was troubled. He called a servant. "What does this mean?" "Your brother has come," the servant replied, "and your father has killed the fatted calf." Anger burned within him. He would not go in. The father came out, pleading with him, but he would not yield. "All these years I have served you," he said bitterly, "never transgressed your command. Yet you never gave me even a young goat to celebrate with my friends. But this son of yours, who devoured your wealth with harlots, you killed a fatted calf for him." The father's eyes filled with sorrow, but his voice was gentle. "My son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. But it was right to rejoice, for your brother was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." The words hung in the air, a truth deeper than justice, a love stronger than pride. Inside, the music swelled, and the son who once wandered far from home found rest again in the father's house. And beyond that moment, through the ages, the story lived on. Not just of a prodigal, but of a God whose mercy runs to meet the lost. For we too have strayed. We too have squandered what was given, yet the Father still watches the road. His heart still breaks for the distant ones. His arms still open wide for every soul that turns homeward.
Many have wandered away from their first love, our Lord and our Father. And yet, every day, the shepherd stands watching the horizon, longing to see the lost sheep come back home. The world may forget, the heart may drift, but the shepherd never stops searching, never stops calling. And Jesus declares in John 10 verse 11, "I am the good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep." For every sinner who repents is a celebration in the courts of glory, a reminder that Jesus is the only way to the Father. But to the ones who are saved, the ones walking righteously, there is a calling that rests upon your shoulders. A call not just to stand, but to reach. Not just to believe, but to restore. For Christ has given us something sacred, something eternal. As 2 Corinthians 5 verse 18 declares, "And all things are of God, who hath reconciled us to himself by Jesus Christ, and hath given to us the ministry of reconciliation." This is who we are. Not merely the redeemed, but the restorers. Not only the found, but the ones sent to find others, carrying the heart of the shepherd, calling the wandering home.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring videos. Thank you for watching.